Thank you everyone for tuning in. Once again, today we're going to be talking about the impact of COVID-19 on the tourism industry. I am Alethea. I'm PADA's Young Tourism Professional Ambassador, and I basically spearhead all our youth programs and take care of our members who are educational institutions. Thank you very much for joining us. Right now we have Paul, who is our Hi, Paul. Yeah. So Paul is our Director of Communications and External Affairs. Paul and I are currently based in Bangkok, Thailand, where the PADA headquarters is. And we also have Professor Ada Loh.
Hello.
Yeah, from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. And she will be doing a short introduction later of the course that she's teaching. So I'm just gonna dive right into it, and we are going to look at, this is our agenda for today. So we're good, the timing is Bangkok time, by the way, so sorry about that. But I'm just gonna do a really quick and short introduction to PATA. PATA stands for the Pacific Asia Travel Association, and we are essentially a membership association. When I say membership association, a lot of times the youth have very little clue what I mean, and they just kind of like nod and just kind of like, yeah, I understand that. But essentially, I like to use the metaphor of a gym membership as a membership association, kind of. So imagine PADA as a gym, and we have all these members who sign up to the gym. So the different members that we have come from the public sector, where we have government organizations that are our members, as well as national tourism boards that are members, and destination management organizations. We also have members hailing from the private sector, and these are aviation companies, hotels, hospitality, tour operators, industry members. And we also have educational institutions as our members. So universities like HK Poly U are our members, and HK Poly U has been a long time, very supportive member of PADA. Yeah. So we also have one other type of membership. Usually our members are organizations, companies, and institutions, but we have one more membership which is for individuals, and it's called the Young Tourism Professional Membership. This membership is free, and it's really for youths to join PADA and be part of our international community and be drivers of change alongside PADA. Because PADA's mission is to really drive sustainable development and the responsible development of the tourism and travel industry in Asia Pacific. So that's my short introduction of PADA. For more on what we do and the projects that we lead and the advocacy that we do, please visit our website, www.pada.org. Yeah, and for now, I'll hand the time over to Professor Ada Loh so she can do a short introduction of Hong Kong Polytechnic University.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. It's actually our pleasure to actually co-host this webinar with PATA Youth. I'm Ada. I am an associate professor at the School of Hotel and Tourism Management. This webinar is actually part of the course that I am teaching. The course is Managing Marketing in the Hospitality and Tourism Industry, which is part of our Master of Science program in Global Hospitality Business Program. To give you a little bit more information about the program, I'm going to show you. Okay, can you see my share screen? Okay, good. So for this particular program, just would like to share with you some background information. As you all know, the Hong Kong Polytechnic University is located in Hong Kong, which is actually in the heart of the booming Asia Pacific region. And we offer this Master of Science in Global Hospitality Business program since 2014. This is actually a tripartite program that is offered by our school together with the Lausanne Hotel School and the Conrad Hilton College of Hotel and Restaurant Management at the University of Houston in the US. So by joining this Global Hospitality Business program, our master's program, students, they will learn from leading academics and international industry practitioners, and they'll also be immersed in global culture and business practices. And they also have the opportunity to attend numerous professional seminars like this one. And students, they will be joining a group of students from around the world. And basically through this journey, they will be developing their own management toolbox while they enjoy the exceptional proximity to the hospitality and tourism markets and the industry leaders. But being a student, joining this master's program, you actually have the opportunity to work with small groups of 3 to 4 students to complete a real-life academic business project assigned by our industry partners. And as I've mentioned, this program is actually offered by the 3 universities. So you have the opportunity to experience the 3 world-class campuses and research centers, and also access to the 3 alumni network. And after you've completed this program, if you join us, you will receive the MSc in Global Hospitality Business degree awarded by the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, and a certificate of completion issued by both the Lausanne Hotel School and the University of Houston. So if you want to embark on an international career of hospitality and tourism, and develop your global perspectives and cultural immersion in the global hospitality business, definitely, I think you should consider this program. I guess as seen in this PowerPoint slide, you see some of our students here. Stephanie, she's actually from Hong Kong. Rutendo, he's from Canada. And Ignacio, he's from Spain. So you actually notice that the group of students whom we have is very, very diverse. So if you're interested, please do scan the QR code here, or you can access our information via the website. The application is closing end of April. So that's all about my little promotion about my the program, the MSc in Global Hospitality Business.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. So now I'm going to hand the time over to Paul. Paul is our Director of Communications and External Affairs. Paul, would you like to do a self-introduction and really just get us started?
Sure, let's just jump right into it. Let me just share my screen real quick here. Hope this works. Is it showing up okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so thank you very much. As Ali has said, I'm the Director of Communications and External Affairs at PATA. My name is Paul Pruangkarn. Today I'm just going to talk about the impact of COVID-19 on the tourism industry. So just give you a quick brief run through of it. I mean, it's a very volatile and evolving situation that's happening, that's changing on a daily basis. So you really could spend a lot of times and go really deeper into this subject, but I'll just give you sort of a general overview in the next 20 minutes, and I'll touch a little bit about recovery. So before we jump into, I guess, to the impacts, let's just look at the travel and tourism in general and why tourism matters, right? And these are figures that we've seen many times around the world. This is from UNWTO, but the figures actually come from the World Travel and Tourism Council, WTTC. So of course, as everyone knows, travel and tourism contributes 10% to global GDP. That's both direct, indirect, and induced. That's 1 in 10 jobs, 1.6 trillion in exports, 7% of world exports, and 30% of service exports. So this is why travel and tourism is extremely important for the global economy. Now, with the current pandemic, things have been extremely severe for the travel and tourism industry. Let's take a step back and actually look at sort of the pandemic just in general first. All right, so as you know, as of today, we have over 1 million confirmed cases across the world. You know, right now, the US seems to be the highest region with the most cases, but the 200,000 people recovered. This is the dashboard produced by Johns Hopkins University. It's been shared a lot online. If you haven't, if you don't know about it, please do check it out. It's a great resource. A lot of people always look at this page, but a lot of people don't look at the actual number of active cases. So if you just look at this page and look at the number of active cases on the next slide, all right, you'll see that the number of active cases in Asia have decreased compared to the previous slide I just showed. China has slowly decreased, and parts of Asia have done better to flatten the curve, which is great. So you've seen the epicenter first happen in China, and then it's moved into Europe. So Italy being the next epicenter of the pandemic, and now the U.S. is the new epicenter. So it's been shifting from east to west, which is really big for the travel and tourism industry because the number one outbound market in the world, of course, is China, and the second one is the U.S. So this will have a huge impact on the travel and tourism industry going forward. So in terms of what is the impact then on travel and tourism, of the current epidemic? Well, the travel and tourism has a huge high exposure to the current impact. You see from this chart from Moody's that lodging and leisure, passenger airlines has a high exposure to the economic impact from the current coronavirus. Other things have low exposure, as you can see. Some positive ones, of course, are internet service companies online, because everyone's at home, so they're shopping or they're watching a Netflix or they're doing other services. Sorry. Now, just earlier this week, the World Bank released some figures about the economic impact of the coronavirus on East Asia and the Pacific. And as you can see, countries in the Eastern Asia and the Pacific are already coping with international trade tensions between the US and China. And now with the repercussions of COVID, it's becoming more of a shock, right? As you see, you have slower growth in some countries, in Cambodia, Vietnam, Myanmar. Indonesia, of course, now is in the negatives. Malaysia, Timor-Leste, Thailand, they're looking at negative growth. And this is just overall economic impact of the coronavirus on East Asia. So now let's start looking at the economic impact then on travel and tourism. And so the next slide here is, the next slide here is from the World Travel and Tourism Council, from WTC. This is just from a press release they released earlier this year. So from their research, they see that up to 75 million jobs globally are at immediate risk from the current COVID-19 impact. That's a potential travel and tourism GDP loss of up to $2.1 trillion this year. That's a staggering 1 million jobs being lost every day in the travel and tourism sector. And as I said, you saw that the economic impact would be worse in Asia from the charts I showed earlier. Asia Pacific is expected to be the most heavily impacted, with up to 49 million jobs at risk throughout the region. That represents nearly $800 billion to travel and tourism GDP for the region. When I mentioned before that in the first slide, in terms of travel and tourism's impact to global GDP, it's 10%. If you look at the Asia Pacific region, actually that number is higher. Places in the region actually have travel and tourism as a huge contributor to destinations GDP. So if you look at Thailand, it's 20%. Places like the Maldives, it's up to 60, 70, 80%. Palau, it's higher. So of course, these numbers will be a lot higher in terms of the risk that the current situation has on the region. So now let's look at airline capacity. Sorry, I just got to print my notes here a second. Now the current slide is from Forward Keys. It's one of our members. They do forward booking data, and they've shown that from the beginning of the year, you'll see that seat capacity was fairly high, was slightly higher compared to last year, but it started to fall in the first week of January when Chinese government announced restrictions. And then as you move into later in the months, as this starts progressing across the world, you see airline capacity is dropping dramatically. And look at last month in March, you've seen it actually drop off considerably. According to IATA, March and April have seen a 50% decline in bookings, while May so far is looking at a 40% decline. I saw some stats just yesterday from Thailand. If you look at Thailand alone, just in April, just on April 1st, there were only 107 international flights in and out of Thailand. So it's 53 flights into Thailand and 54 flights out of Thailand. There were 58 domestic flights in Thailand, and that's an 83.7% reduction in flights. Overall, there were 4,197 international passengers. There was only 966 passengers into Thailand. Now, if you compare that to an average of visitors to Thailand to last year Thailand had 40 million international visitors. So if you took an average of that, Thailand last year was averaging 100,000 visitors per day. Yesterday, they only saw close to 1,000 visitors. That's a huge dramatic drop in terms of international visitors to Thailand. So if you compare that, so that's just one destination, that's Thailand being one of the leading destinations in the region for international visitors. Now, if you compare it to other destinations, the numbers will probably be comparatively the same. So you've seen the dramatic impact of travel and tourism, of coronavirus to travel and tourism. So let's start looking at hotel data here. And this is from STR. This is from a press release they just released the other day. China recovery is slowly coming back. So occupancy has increasing slowly over the past few weeks as they've started to loosen restrictions on the residents. They've seen that things are slowly going back to normal. I know people in the region are slowly going back to work. So you'll see that there is a slight slow recovery coming back in mainland China in terms of recovery. And that's mostly just from domestic travel. But places like Singapore and Malaysians, it's dramatically, occupancy is still declining. You'll see that you have some increases, but those increases are mainly due to employers using hotels as accommodations for the workers. So those numbers are being taken into account in this data from STR. Bangkok, as I said before, Bangkok is seeing less visitors on a daily basis. Over the past month, we've seen restrictions slowly happening in the country. They change every day. Thailand, provinces like Phuket have actually now closed all hotels, so they will no longer accept any visitors to their properties. Current visitors can stay on current occupants can stay, but they will not be accepting any new visitors into their properties. So you see it's a dramatic increase in Thailand across the board over the past few months. And this is very similar to other parts of the region as well. Vietnam, of course, is seeing a steady decline over the past few weeks, and this is just a snapshot that sort of shows what's happening in other countries in the region as well. They're all similar charts. You'll see that the hotel occupancy has been dramatically decreasing over the past few weeks. So those are just some of the figures that I wanted to show you that I was able to pick off from what was available. I just want to talk a little bit about recovery. That's always the big thing. We've seen that it is a pretty big issue. Sorry, you guys can see my daughter walking behind me. But yeah, so you see that it's pretty severe. It's a pretty big impact that's happening across the region, across our sector, and of course in Asia Pacific, the numbers do look bleak. However, what kind of recovery are we looking at, right? This is from a webinar I just happened to join earlier this week from Skift. There was about 1,000 people on this webinar, and Skift had asked all the participants what kind of recovery do they see over the next for travel and tourism. Most of the respondents saw a U-shaped sort of recovery. I think the term they used was a slanted U-shape because you saw a dramatic drop, and then it will be a sort of a slow increase over the next few months. The next would be W-shaped, V-shaped, and L-shaped. Actually, the CEO and founder of Skift, his own personal preference was that he thinks an L-shaped. An L-shaped is not sort of flat; it's more just a very, very slow recovery. Because the next question they showed that they asked all the participants is, what kind of, when do you think demand will then return to pre-pandemic levels? So most people said in the next 12 months. The next was 18 months, then you have 6 months, and then some people say longer than 18 months. The New York Times just released an article the other day saying that they're looking at a recovery of about 5 years, so 2023 to 2024. The CEO of the Ireland Tourism Board, he thinks that they probably don't see recovery until 2022. So yes, it does look severe, but let's look at travel sentiment. Let's look at some of what people are thinking about now. Right, there was a recent survey done by Kantar, and it asked all their participants, so what do they want to do after the pandemic? 50% want to go to restaurants, 51% want to go shopping, 45% want to travel, right? People have been locked up. They want to go out. They want to go out and they want to do things. They've been stuck inside all day, and they really they've been inspired by some of the things they've seen. A lot of people have learned to cook at home, so then that's been inspiring them to want to go out and eat. People want to go shopping, and of course, people want to travel. There was a recent study that we just released in conjunction with Ivy Alliance and Comfort Travel. It was a survey done in China for Chinese sentiment, and from the people that they surveyed, they said 60% of tourists indicated they would consider traveling this year if the epidemic effectively was controlled by the end of March or April. So there is some hope that this will be more of a quicker rebound and a quicker recovery, as opposed to a slower L-shaped recovery. So what can we do? What is PATA doing? It's PATA right now. We're trying to help our members and industry stakeholders across the region, across the world, provide them with some resources for them to help them in the recovery efforts. We've just launched yesterday a crisis resource center that's available at prtm.pata.org. On that, we've been collating various information from governments about the financial aid packages that are available for industry stakeholders. We also have a tab for a tourism recovery monitor. It's broken down by categories: aviation, hospitality, market insights, and analytics, China market, and of course, resources from other associations and organizations like the World Health Organization, WTC, and UNWTO. We also will do a travel impact survey to find out how industry stakeholders around the world are being impacted, and using that information to help spur governments to act. Because as you saw from the numbers before, the impact has been extremely severe for the industry. Mostly, the most severely impacted, of course, are SMEs. And of course, airlines and hotels are being just as impacted. The thing that you need to think when we talk about recovery, that recovery will be, we need to start acting now. We need to act together in partnership with our members and all industry stakeholders to come back. This will be as my CEO has said, a delayed recovery and a longer recovery than usual. We've never seen a pandemic like this before. We've never seen a situation like this before. It's not like a war. It's not like a war and it ends and things will go back to normal. We don't know when this will end. Hopefully, everyone's trying to flatten the curve. So we're telling people that they need to start thinking long-term planning now. to start thinking about what they can do to help each other and stay together and work through these times. Um, the Once this recovers, the landscape will change considerably. Before travel and tourism, before this epidemic happened, you know, travel behavior was slowly changing. People were thinking about sustainability was a big issue when people were choosing destinations and choosing properties and activities to do. The issue of over tourism was a big issue. Now, when things sort of go back to normal, travel behavior then will also include sort of just safety and security. You know, some people are saying that Airbnbs will have a tougher time because um, sanitary precautions being taken care of. You know, more people will most likely go to hotels because they will be reassured that they will be cleaned and sanitized correctly as opposed to an Airbnb. So these are some things that we're trying to inform our members and of course all industry stakeholders across the board. And we do hope that many of you can join us and work together as we try to recover from the current pandemic. And with that, that is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, but I believe we do go into Q&A. And apologies for my daughter who's giving me the stink eye right now. So happy to take any questions now. Thank you.
Yay! Thank you very much, Paul. I think it was really interesting how the entire thing, you kind of went through like this really great overview of like the impact that the industry kind of faced. And you ended with this note on hotels being safer than Airbnbs. So we actually did have some questions come in with a hospitality focus, and I'm going to ask that first. So now we're going to move into the Q&A section, yeah?
Sure.
Okay, so concerning the huge decline of occupancy for hotels, how can the hospitality industry kind of adjust or prepare itself for future crises that are similar to this global pandemic that's happening now?
Well, I mean, it's you know, I joined a couple years ago. I had the honor of being part of a panel at the UN Conference for Disaster Resilience, and you know, a lot of times the discussion was that the industry stakeholders don't really know they don't talk about resiliency until after the fact. You know, like Japan, after the typhoon, then hoteliers were concerned about how do I make it more resilient in the future. Um, but how do hotels do the thing is it's just now, you know, duty of care will be extremely important, right? People want to be safe and secure. People want to make sure that they have um, they want to be flexible policies, right? You're seeing that people will remember that in the future. I mean, people will say, look, you know, during the crisis, they'll remember if the hotel, you know, gave them a refund or gave them a chance to push back their bookings. Um, People will want to want that security going forward. Make sure that care, that duty of care is there. It will be top of the mind, especially right after the pandemic ends. And of course, sustainability will be an issue as well. So these are two things that will come together once this pandemic ends. That that not just hoteliers, but all industry stakeholders will have to consider when we want to like come back from the recovery efforts for the current situation.
Okay, yeah. How about we have a few questions about Thailand? Do you think Thailand can maintain the so-called reputation of being Teflon Thailand post COVID-19? And will they be able to pick up the same number of tourists in a short period of time?
Uh, you know, I didn't touch about this before, though. You know, I mentioned that airlines were being severely impacted. You've seen, you know, I think, like Thai Airways, they've grounded most of their flights. Also, no international flights. I think there's only a few airlines actually like really operating international flights. I think I saw a list. There's like only eight airlines. When they do sort of when borders sort of reopen, um, and they'll open slowly. They won't just all open across the board, right? I mean, you're seeing that in like Hong Kong and Korea and China, that the current new cases are from visitors inside coming back to the country. Is that they will sort of be this, it will slowly be by country. The airlines then will look at where's the most volume. They'll look at the most popular places. Thailand being a very popular destination, that will probably open that air route fairly faster. So Thailand does have that brand recognition, and they will probably come a lot faster. Um, Thailand is amazing in that regard, that they do always bounce back extremely quickly from any type of incidents in the past. They've gone through many in the past decade. So I'm fairly confident to say that they probably will bounce back fairly quickly. It is a major hub. It has everything that most of the visitors are looking for from all different segments. They do a really good job with marketing. TAT has always done a great job with marketing. So I think in terms of some destinations in the region, I think Thailand is probably the ones that will probably be the first one to recover the fastest. Will it be a V shape or a U shaped? That's tough to say, but yeah, I think they will do. They'll recover probably one of the first in the destinations. Yeah.
Okay. How about there's another question in our Q&A. So instead of just focusing on Thailand, but how about other destinations that are also really dependent on the China outbound market? So I know Dr. Mario, our CEO, had written a blog post last year before this entire thing blew up about having more than one target market. Could you like maybe expand a little bit more on the impact of China outbound tourism? And Professor Ada, if you want to jump in at any point in time, please feel free. Yeah.
Yeah. So as Alethea had said, Mario about a year ago had written a blog post about what happens if the Chinese stop traveling, which was really interesting because this happened before the pandemic. And then when the pandemic started happening, China was the first market they were the ones that had to close the borders, and they stopped traveling. So people were extremely affected. That those that were dependent on the Chinese traveler. I think it was a slow wake up call for a lot of destinations that heavily depended and had their marketing activities geared towards China. Where then we, even before the pandemic, we were saying that it's important to diversify your source markets, right? Any good investor will tell you that. Diversify your portfolio, diversify your source of income. I think if you're looking for volume, I think people will try to at first market towards the Chinese traveler. They're the ones that are slowly first also recovering, so then they'll be more apt to travel. But I think in the long term, you'll see destinations sort of look to diversify their major source markets, to have it more evenly across the board. Thailand, I think, is 30% dependent upon China as a source market. I think it's about 10 million from China just last year. So it's because things, it may not be a pandemic next time. It might be some political instability or some economic change. So it's important that you sort of diversify going forward. But yeah, people will start looking at volume first because they want to recover, right? People are losing money on a daily basis, and they need to recover and try to get their business up and running as soon as possible.
Yeah, I also just want to pimp out the previous webinar that we did on recovery with our partners. That's available on Para YouTube channel, and that webinar actually has our partners go deep into how small organizations should really look at recovering post COVID-19. Yeah. Okay. So
I actually do have a question
yeah.
for Paul.
Yes.
I understand that, let's say, PATA works with different sectors in the tourism business. And as we all know, like the cruise industry, I would say that is badly affected because we have actually seen like big cases on the news about like people getting infected on cruise lines. So what do you see as what do you think the cruise lines can do in terms of recovery? How can they actually rebound and get the business back?
Well, I mean, the cruise line, has out of all the sectors, they probably have the toughest job after this. I mean, you've seen sort of it's still happening. There are cruise ships still out there that have no port to land in. And even before the pandemic, the issues of sustainability and how sustainable a cruise industry is had a negative impact upon sort of people choosing cruise as an option of travel. They need to sort of rethink of how they're doing business. They need to the cruise industry. I think, in my opinion, I think they need to rethink like how can they be more sustainable? How can they have more duty of care? You'll probably see more sort of health checks and safety precautions for cruise passengers. But I think they have a long road ahead of them. The cruise, I think our our CEO actually did a blog post about this a couple of years, actually a year ago, about he was one of these people that didn't like cruises because, of course, the sustainability thing and being stuck on a boat. But then he experienced it. He went out with his family, and then he really enjoyed the cruise experience. So there is an option for cruise. Cruise will always be something that people will want to do. But I think they need to think how they do their business. The fact is sort of in terms of like the people say like, oh, these the current ships that are out at sea, and they have no port of landing, is because they will incorporate their businesses in in sort of tax havens, which then doesn't allow them to be able to port in sort of somewhere like the U.S. or major country where they would be incorporated. So they need to think about how they sort of do business going forward. But there is an option for it. But out of all the industries, it will be the probably the last to recover. And yeah, they have a long road ahead of them.
Okay, thank you. Actually, we do have questions from the Q&A box, right?
Yes.
So would you like to address them, Paul?
Well, you can do the Q&A, right? You can pick one.
Sorry.
I think maybe the one on short haul travel versus long haul.
Yeah, sure. I'll do the short haul travel to long haul travel. Yeah, I think I was talking about this maybe months ago with another colleague of mine.
Sorry, just for everyone. So the question is, do you think short haul travel will rebound faster than long haul travel? And are there any forecasts made on this?
Okay, I'll do the first part first, and then I'll talk about the forecast just after that. So in terms of long haul versus short haul travel, what will happen first, in my opinion, will that you'll see more domestic travel first. People will start testing out waters. I mean, this is something that was talked about at the Skift webinar earlier. People will start testing the waters of travel first, right? Because even borders within countries are closed. Like I said, Phuket is the province of Phuket is closed, so people can't go in and out of the island of Phuket. I mean, even people, Thai people can't go in and out. Not residents can't even leave there. So first will be domestic. You'll see that slowly happening first. It will then trickle over to short haul. Particularly look at Asia, right? Because in Asia, you see these numbers are going down, right? So as those numbers go down and those borders slowly start to open up first, you'll see that short haul travel happening. And then, of course, long haul will then be sort of the end, like the third or fourth stage, when then that will sort of pick up. But it will be in stages. People will be nervous. Travel behavior is slowly changing, and yeah, people want to be careful going forward. They, if there's a problem, they want to be able to get home quickly, and so they're going to test that water first, domestically first, just get out. I know I've been cooped up in here all day. I want to get out. I just want to get, outside of the city. That will happen, and then domestic sort of regional travel, and then of course long haul and going places like Europe and the Americas. But like from Asia to Europe and the Americas, of course, I've said there's this shift, right? The epicenter has moved from east to west, and well, Americas will probably be the last to to recover, unless we still have the Africa regions and South America. But yeah, so things are evolving every day. So we'll see what happens in the next few weeks and months.
Mm,
Oh, and the second, yes, we will be releasing in just a few weeks our forecast numbers. So we do every year we do a 5-year forecast. This year it's been a little bit delayed because we actually had to. The forecast books are done extremely early in the year, so in January. They actually start putting that together in February. We actually work with Hong Kong Polytechnic on these forecasts. Professor Song, I think, is the one that we work with. He helps us with the forecast, and some of the students helps us forecast. They've been busy in the past few weeks because we asked them to actually update the forecast numbers to include analysis of the impact of the current coronavirus situation. And they've done 3 scenarios. They've done best case, worst case, and of course most realistic cases. So I haven't seen those figures yet. I don't know what the forecast is. I think from what initially I've read a little bit about, I think they're saying that yes, in maybe the year or two there will be a dip in numbers, but over the 5 years we will still see the numbers that we were originally forecasting at the beginning of the year. So we were forecasting before the pandemic, I think close to 1 billion travelers into Asia Pacific. So so I think we still do see that number happening in the next 5 years. But yeah, but I said in the next year or 2 years, that number might change a little bit differently.
Yeah. Okay, so I have, we're actually running to the end of our webinar soon. So I have 2 more questions for you, Paul.
Sure.
One is from the Q&A, and it's about unemployment. How come the expectations is that Asia is going to be hit much harder than Europe, for example, in terms of unemployment and in terms of the risk posed to jobs in tourism?
Well, as I said, travel and tourism in Asia Pacific is a big contributor to government's global GDP. I mean, sorry, GDP, right? So places like Europe and the Americas, travel and tourism is slightly lower in percentage in terms of their contribution to their country's GDPs. In Asia Pacific, it's higher, right? As I said, in Thailand, it's 20% direct. And if you talk about direct and indirect, I think it pushes higher. So, Maldives, I think is 80 to 90%. So if you're taking all as a whole, yes, the impact is going to be higher in Asia Pacific, just because we've in the region we understand how travel and tourism could be a huge economic benefit for communities, and so governments here are more supportive of the travel and tourism industry. Unfortunately, because of the current impact and the current impact that's had on travel and tourism in general, it has a bigger impact than, of course, on the region and employment.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. So just to wrap up this entire webinar, the last question that we have for you is once again about unemployment and the threat to 75 million tourism jobs. So what can young tourism professionals, fresh graduates who kind of just graduate from tourism schools and have a diploma or a bachelor's or a master's in tourism, what advice would you give to this group of people right now?
Well, I mean, the more advice is, don't lose hope. There is, prepare for the worst, but don't lose hope. Like I said, the sentiment for people for travel is there. People have been cooped up, during various lockdowns and self quarantines and whatnot that's going across the world. So the travel and tourism industry will rebound. So don't give up hope. But the most important thing also is people across the board are using this time to improve their skills. looking to take online classes, there's plenty of free available online classes. You know, I know Google does a lot of free certification for SEO marketing and using the Google Analytics. You know, take that time to use some of these free tools. A lot of universities are opening up a lot of free classes as well. You know, Khan Academy, I think, is giving some free classes. MIT does free courses. You know, I think even Yale has is allowing people to audit one of their most popular classes, happiness. Take that time to improve your skills. For the fresh graduates that are sort of coming into the industry, you know, you do have a slight advantage. And a lot of people, a lot of the sort of older professionals sort of are being shocked right now because a lot of them are trying to work virtually. So for them, that's a huge problem, right? You know, they're like, oh, how do, you know, I think there was a question the other day. I think my colleague is on this phone, so I won't mention her name, but she was like, how do I use incognito mode? You know, I think there was a email from, I think I was talking to another member today. He was like, yeah, how do I put your phone number in WhatsApp? You know, the fact that people are working from home, they've just realized, you know, they realized how important it is to be sort of technology savvy. So the younger generation, millennials, have a step up. You know, I think people will start relying on technology going forward. They've seen the benefits of it. You know, I think like business travel, I think companies will start thinking about business travel in a different light going forward, right? They will say, well, look, we've done virtual meetings. Maybe we don't need to send our salespeople out now. We can have more virtual meetings, right? We can do virtual webinars. We can do virtual conferences. Technology has been a big help for a lot of businesses across the board. But a lot of people aren't really technically savvy. You've seen videos of people like asking their kids, like, "Hey, can you help me with my Zoom setup, or can you help me with my Google Hangouts?" So you have a head up. You're going to be competing with a lot of people going forward. But if you get the certifications, improve your education, get more technically savvy. You'll have the advantage against other people. You know, and it will be tough. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's not going to be easy. It said you will be competing. So if there's an opportunity to volunteer somewhere or take an unpaid internship, I think those are great opportunities. Because you want to be able to gain some experience in the workforce. So it's and the thing is, it's something that everyone really needs now. There've been a lot of layoffs, but I think companies would welcome sort of unpaid interns to help them out. A lot of people are extremely hurting right now, and they need help. I'm not saying that PATA is hurting, but we are looking for, of course, interns. So we are always open to accept interns. That helps out. Of course, I'm also looking for people to help out on our microsite, helping us source some resources to add to our microsite. All these things will help not just for you, but also the industry in general, and help hopefully recover faster.
Thank you so much, Paul, for the super insightful sharing that you shared with us today, as well as the wisdom that you shared with us. Thank you also for ending on a very hopeful note for our young tourism professionals. I think hope is really important in these times. It's always important to kind of just keep believing that things will get better, and they will. Yeah. So I'm so sorry, we actually have a lot more questions, but we can't get to all of them. But we've come to the end of our webinar, and for this, let me just share my email so that if anyone wants more information, you can email me, or so you can email me for a copy of this webinar that will be recorded and sent to you. You can also go to www.pata.org/YTP for more information about our YTP membership for people, and it's free as long as you're a student or you're a fresh grad of not more than 2 years. So really join our international community. And Professor, do you have any last words?
Well, I just would like to say thank you to PATA and also the PATA youth, and also Ali and Paul to spend the time to organize this webinar for our students. And also I'm so excited that I think at the highest point of time, we got over 100 participants participating in this webinar, which I think it's really, really encouraging that people actually would like to know more about the impact of this pandemic to the tourism industry. And then, as Paul said, we need to actually look ahead, be optimistic, and as young graduates or people who are in the industry, I guess definitely there's light at the end of the tunnel. So we all are working together towards that light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you everyone, and
Thank you.
see you online.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.